Today on the Idiot's Guide, we're talking about TikTok, why we all suck at time management, and how it's costing us more and more every single day. And if you're familiar with the names Taylor Drift or Beyonce, you definitely live in Minnesota, where the snowplow naming event of the year has begun. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, aka The Profit Hacker, and I'm joined by the man in charge, Mr. Joe Haslam. Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. All right, so for all of those people out there that are eager about what's going on with time management, why we feel like we never have enough time in the day or anything like that, and we just kind of like, it seems like it's one of those things that's always fleeting. It's always one of those situations where you tell a friend, you're like, I just don't have enough time to do anything in the day. I wish there was more hours in the day. And you're like, I only get 24. And you're like, wait a second. It kind of sounds like a lot, but wait a sec, it's not, because if I do all the things that I want to do, all the things, then I don't get any time to do all the things. And so I get frustrated. And then I go on TikTok and I make a venting video on TikTok about how hard it is to do all the things that I want to do. And I don't have enough time to do all those things because I got to go to work. And then when I don't work enough, or if I work my normal time that I'm supposed to work and I get that time and I put that time in, I should make enough to make a living, and I can't even buy French fries at McDonald's. So I think today is going to be exciting because we are going to smack that around for a while and let the little children know that, no, I'm not smacking children. I want to be clear about that. But I want them to know that we feel for them, but we don't care because the world doesn't care. And if you think there's not enough time in 24 hours every single day, you're about to be shown. You absolutely have more than enough time, you little lazy humans.
Yep.
Joe,
now,
take it away.
I know that sounds really harsh, but it's true. So when we were talking about this a couple days ago, we were talking about how, back in the old days, these men would go to work. Now, obviously back then there were a lot fewer women at work, but we can even equate it to today. But back then men would go to work, and even during World War II and other things, women would go to work at the factories.
Yeah. They'd
be working 12 plus hours a day.
Easily.
And that was just what you did. And it was expected of you to work massively long hours. Now, back then, they didn't have television. They didn't have video games. They didn't have handheld devices that they could play Quasi Cupcakes for Brooklyn Nine-Nine fans. You couldn't do all these things that took so much of your time. So yeah, it was a lot easier to work 12 hours a day, and it was tiring, but not feel that you were wasting your time, because I did the maths.
The maths. And what kind of mathing does maths do?
Okay. So the hours available in a week, so 7 days, so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the hours available, 168. 168 hours. That is essentially, if you work 40 hours a week, 4 entire work weeks. 4 work weeks in any given week. If you were working all day, every day, never slept, you would be able to have 4 jobs. Now, I'm not saying that's reasonable, but that's how much time that is. So sleeping hours, assuming 8 hours a day, it's 56 hours of sleep a week. Okay. So you're getting your 8 hours a day of sleep, and you're not getting 5 hours, which everyone that complains about, I don't have enough time, talks about they don't get to sleep enough.
So that's still 112 hours.
We've still got 112 hours
Okay.
to do stuff.
How many
outside
hours of sleep is the 56? That's 8.
Yeah, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Goodness. I mean, like most people past 30 would love that.
Right. So, I mean, this is assuming a lot of sleep. You're well rested, everything, okay? So you are awake 112 hours. Now, let's take your main job into account. So you're going to work 40 hours a week.
Okay.
That's the quote unquote ideal work hours for the US. If you're in France, it's 20 to 30. Other areas in first world nations don't see 40 hours as being a necessary amount of time to work. In the United States, 40 hours a week is the average work week. Now, sometimes we work a little bit more, things like that, but 40 hours, average work week.
Okay.
That still leaves you 72 hours. That is 3 full days, 3 full 24-hour days of free time.
Yeah.
After you finished your first full-time job.
Well, even if you break that up into every single day, like 72 hours of your whole day.
Yeah. Over 7 days a week. That's 10 hours a day.
All right. So let's chop it a little bit more, though, because there's things like, man, I was stuck in traffic. Man, I had to go grocery shopping. I had to make dinner.
So I've got some additional hours. So out of those 72, we're going to assume that 7 days a week, you're going to spend an hour getting ready every morning. Now, I don't spend an hour every morning. I actually only take 20 minutes. And yes, I know it's down to 20 minutes. 30 minutes for breakfast, which again, I think most people probably don't do 30 minutes for breakfast, but we're giving the benefit of the doubt. Okay. So an hour to get ready every morning, 30 minutes for breakfast every morning, 1 full hour of lunch every day, and 1 full hour for dinner every day.
So 3.5 hours of every day.
Exactly. 3.5 hours doing prep, food, all that. And then 5 days a week, 1 hour of travel.
Okay.
So that's half hour to, half hour back. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
And so with all of that, that takes out 29.5 hours for a given week.
Okay.
So now you are left with 42.5 hours of free time. That is almost 2 full days of free time. Doesn't account for a job. And, you're working a full-time job. You have a full-time job of free time. More.
Yeah.
42 hours, not 40.
That's generous. I mean, your employer could take that.
Yeah. And so, 7 hours, you're looking at, or 7 days a week, 6 hours a day of free time outside of meals, outside of work, outside of cleaning yourself in the morning, outside of travel. That is 6 hours a day for yourself.
Okay, so here's I'm going to back this up a little bit because we just obliterated your your average complaint in I think 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Dismantled it with just talking about the hours in which you have available, plentiful every single day.
Yeah, there are plenty of hours. Even if you add in a half hour of exercise, I think, prep in the morning includes that half hour of exercise. The hour of lunch is going out and taking a walk around your building complex to get your 15 minutes of exercise break in the day. All those things you can fill in with exercise. Those of you that bike to work, that's your travel time.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things filter into you're getting your exercise. But let's say you even add on an extra half hour of exercise every day. That's still 5.5 hours every single day of free time.
So when I first thought about doing this episode, a big part of my mind goes to budgeting.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, our society and what we're dealing with a lot of times is a cost of living concern. Mm-hmm. And a cost of living in comparison when you go like, man, how can I make a living when I work at Walmart, and I'll use that as an example. I saw a reel that was pulled from a TikTok that was a girl complaining about working at Walmart and not having enough money to move out from her parents' house to pay rent. So, and I just said, okay, first off, you look, and I don't want to assume, but, holding a coffee cup kind of a thing, working at Walmart, you have this bias that comes into play. But I still have to look at this and go, if I remember what I did when I was living in my parents' basement. I didn't want to be home because it wasn't really that cool living with my parents. And, so maybe I'm in my 20s, early 20s. I had 2 jobs. I had a race car and a Jeep. And so any other time I was gone using that free time, but I had 2 jobs and I was going to school. So I feel like I did a pretty dang good job of utilizing my hours to maximize the benefits from that.
Yeah. And one of the big things is a lot of people will say that you shouldn't have 2 jobs. You shouldn't have to have 2 jobs. I say bull. And the reason I say that is you've got 40 hours, 5.5 hours, is that what we decided? 5.5 hours a day of nothing. Nothing.
There's always those adages about or the old adage about the idle hands.
Yeah.
Like if you're just sitting still, what are you going to do? Probably more than likely now you're going to waste money somewhere.
You're going to be spending, those 5.5 hours on TikTok. You're going to be, going out and buying frivolous stuff. Yeah. I mean, you're going to be wasting your time and money by not utilizing those hours in the best way possible.
Yep.
Now,
you're going to be filming yourself in the car with your phone.
Yeah. Now, when I talk about those extra 40 hours, I'm talking about young single people.
Yes.
Okay. Now, young single people generally don't have degrees. They are dating, so they maybe need a little bit more for, activities or things like that. But they don't have to take care of kids at home.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I went through and I figured out budgets for all these different categories of people, and if you are 20 years old, working at Walmart with no degree, you shouldn't have kids. And if you do have kids because, a mistake that you made with an ex-boyfriend,
life circumstances led you there.
Circumstances, whatever it was, where are your parents? Your parents should be the ones that are assisting you while you go and get a degree. So I'm not talking about those young people that because they were stupid teenagers, which happens. Mm-hmm. I'm not blaming the teenagers. Teenagers are stupid. Things happen.
You heard it here, folks.
Their parents need to step up in those situations. It's 4 years. 4 years. Get that kid into, I don't care what kind of college it is, a local college, get a bachelor's degree. You help take care of their kid, your grandkid. This is your blood. Mm-hmm. You take care of your grandkid for 4 years while you help your kid go to college. And now they have a college degree, which immediately improves the amount of money that they're making. And I've gone through the budget for different scenarios for all of this. Then now they can afford that kid because they have the college degree. They have the job, the better job to be able to afford more. Okay. So don't come to me complaining that you don't have anything. Well, you made the mistake to have kids. And I know that sounds really rude to people out there.
I would say this, you know what assuming does, right? It makes you look like an ass.
There you go. Which version? Going back to our...
I think it's the other way. It's you and me. But anyway, I always skip that part and just call you one.
But, I mean, there are things that happen, but there should be a network there. Now, there are people who don't have a network. There are people who don't have parents who are willing to help them. And there are a lot of programs for people in that situation to help supplement their income, to be able to pay for, the needs of their child, to help with rent assistance. And I'm not just talking about government programs. I'm talking about nonprofit organizations. There are government programs. There are a lot of things like that that help. And that's why we need those government programs. It's not for people taking advantage of it. It's for the people that actually desperately need it. Okay. So off the soapbox on that one, what I'm talking about are specific stages of individuals. When you are a young, single 20-year-old, don't come crying to me that you are having to work 2 jobs to afford. Yeah, duh. You should be working 2 jobs. When you're married and have a family, you are working 2 jobs.
Yes.
You have your main job. Even if you're a stay-at-home parent, I say even if, a stay-at-home parent is a full-time job.
Yes.
You are maintaining the house, you are managing the household budget, you're keeping it organized, meals and kids.
Yes.
That is what you do as a stay-at-home parent. And then you have to have fun with those kids. That's the second job, is taking them places, doing things with them, helping them with their homework. All of these things, those are the second job that both parents share in a relationship. Okay? So don't just complain, my spouse doesn't work. No, they're working.
I feel like
if they're working.
I feel like dishes for me is a third job.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of these things that come up, when you are a young single adult, you should be working 2 jobs, because otherwise, in my opinion, you're being lazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got 40 hours a week that you're doing what? I mean, if you go out on dates, okay, let's say that's 2 nights a week, maybe 3 hours each, 3 nights a week, 3 hours each. You still got 30 hours. 30 hours a week where you're not doing anything.
Well, and I can say this, like education-wise, even if you did get a college degree, you don't have a kid, you just have kind of a crappy job, so you're living at home, you have a job and you're going to college or whatever. Maybe you're going to a university and you're living in a dorm, and you have that scenario, but usually you want some things, you want to be able to do things, and oftentimes school, like in that sort of scenario, is still expensive. So you have to look at options about maybe working at a pizza joint or working at, back in the day it was Blockbuster Video, whatever. Any of those kind of scenarios of kind of like moonlighting at the end of the night with something that will bring in a couple things so you have some pocket change to spend.
Now, talking about college, this is another problem that I have, okay? How many hours do you think a week you should spend on college activities, college education? I'm not talking about, mixers or whatever they call them to do these kinds of things.
Are you just talking about the actual school work?
School and homework.
I mean, if I was trying to get a degree, I don't even know. Like I like it, maybe an equivalent to a full-time job.
No.
Really?
Yep. So the thing is, average students take anywhere from 12 to 18 credit hours per semester. Okay. That's the expected amount. More than that, you're doing too much.
Okay.
Less than that, you're not doing enough, and I think you're considered under 12 a part-time student.
Okay.
So 15 is about average. Okay. And so the way that they categorize credit hours is how many lecture hours per week. So if you're getting 15 credit hours, so let's say you're taking 5 classes that have 3 credit hours each, okay, then what you're doing is you are in class 15 hours a week.
Okay.
Okay. And so actual class time is 15 hours a week. Now, you should spend maybe an additional 30% of time doing homework. It's not an equivalent time because you're spending, again, you've got 5 classes. Each week you're in that class for 3 hours. And anyone who has been to college knows that you're not actually in that class for 3 hours.
No.
At least not most of the time. Some professors will, keep you there to the minute. But most
I could
professors
never stay awake in those classes. That's the problem for me.
most professors, most instructors recognize that after like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, you're done.
I never even knew I could be so bored in a math class until I went to a college math class.
Well, they're so long.
Yes.
Now, sometimes they're split between 2 days, and then maybe sometimes you're there a little bit longer. But even then, even in a split class where you're there for an hour and a half, usually you're really only in the class for an hour. So you're really not even spending a full 15 hours a week in your college classes. Okay. And so then you should spend maybe an additional 5 hours a week doing homework. That's about an hour per class, which is reasonable per week. We're not talking about an entire semester. We're talking about every week you set aside an hour to do your homework in each class.
Okay.
Okay, that's reasonable. If
Yeah.
you have an English class or where you're doing a report, usually you have 3 or 4 weeks to do a report. I think 4 hours is enough time to write a report, a college report. Now, if you get into the high, I'm talking about undergrad, so up to the bachelor's degree. After the bachelor's degree, it does become a little bit different because the classes become harder. Generally, you're doing fewer of them, but still. So 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week is all you're spending on college.
What about like a
that's a
final or a
full-time
paper, writing a paper, that kind of stuff? Like,
That's what I'm talking about. Writing a paper. If you plan your time right,
okay,
you're not spending more than an hour per class.
which still fits into, you could have a full-time job in that.
You can have a full-time job, spend 20 hours on college, and you still have 20 hours a week of free time.
What about that frat party?
20 hours a week of free time.
That's
20
true.
hours a week of free time. And generally, you're not getting 8 hours of sleep if you're at the frat party. You're going to get like 2. And so that frat party just took your 6 hours of sleep. That's what you transferred it for. And so the reality is, it's just laziness that's causing us to think that we don't have enough time in the day. There is plenty of time. And so if you're in college, so I did the maths, okay? If you're in college, you generally are not going to be paying for the full rent for wherever you're staying.
Right.
So let's say you have an apartment. When I was in college, I had 3 roommates.
Okay.
And so we shared a 3-bedroom apartment. It was nice. It was a big 3-bedroom apartment.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, it's great. Our half the time I had no idea who was in the apartment. Because it was just an open door. Ours was like the party house.
Yeah.
And so it was just constantly people filtering through, and you really never knew who they were. A few people you knew because they were kind of somewhat connected to your group of people. So friends of the roommates, not friends of friends or anything like that. So sometimes you knew them. But yeah, I hardly ever knew who was even at our place.
Mine were all returned missionaries and geeks. So like they would have LAN wars. So anytime that it was somebody else plugged into the network that they were running through the whole house and playing. Like I had my room I was not either one of those.
Yeah.
Okay. But I had a sliding glass door that accessed from the ground level into my room of the apartment. And so I paid a little extra in rent because I had that space. And so I was like, it made it so I had a private entrance for my, my manor in which I lived.
Well, the crazy thing is, 3 of us were studying accounting. And so, but ours was the party house. So, we were nerds, but we weren't that nerdy. So you're looking at, if you're working 40 hours a week, okay, and if you're only working 40 hours a week at $9 an hour, you're getting your college paid for. It's just, through grants. That's not even
Right.
Student loans. If you're making that little and you have no other support system, then everything's paid for you.
Especially right now.
Yeah. There's no question. So I don't have college tuition on here.
Okay.
Because you're not paying any.
But you will, though.
No, you won't. Not in that. That's not you. That will qualify you for income needs if you don't have any family supporting you.
No, in the future you'll pay that tuition back. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's taxes. But this is a call out to all adults out there. Stop treating your kids like they need to pay for college themselves. You have the money. Help them. You are their parent. Get them to the next stage in life. Don't tell them, I struggled, so you have to. That is the stupidest thing in the world. You want them to succeed.
On the next episode of the Idiots Guide, we're going to talk to the parents.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a preview.
So anyway, that's just, I have a hard time with parents that do that. But anyway, so during college, and $9 an hour, lowest of the low. Okay, that is a really, really low wage. I looked at comparisons. Okay, so just to give you an idea, I may bring this up later. Walmart starting pay, $14 an hour. McDonald's starting pay, $10.50 an hour. Domino's starting pay, $11 an hour.
Are these national averages or are these like local?
These are local positions.
Okay.
So, and Utah is known as having one of the lowest job wages.
Right.
And so these are
That's
low.
That's the reason why I'm asking that is because in context, it's not necessarily, it's still gonna be low where you're at in context, but the demographics and economics of that area dictate you're still within that same range.
Like Walmart's starting wage goes from $14 to $18. So $18 would be like a California market or something like that.
Right.
So we're really talking Utah markets here. Okay. So going back to this, $9 an hour. If you're getting $9 an hour, you did not work hard enough to find a good job. Because you had to look for a cheap job to get $9 an hour.
My son is making more than that an hour and he's 15.
Exactly. Exactly. You have to look for a job this low. Okay. So you're in college. You have one roommate in a 2-bedroom apartment. Okay.
Okay.
So those are scenarios. So you're making about $1,560 a month. So $1,560 a month. Your taxes, and I worked out all the taxes on all these. I went through all of the circulars, the publications, state and federal, to work out the exact tax amount on these. Okay. I did the maths.
You aren't letting anything slip through.
I am not. Okay. So your total taxes on that is $202 a month. Okay. So your take home is $1,357. I assumed a rent of $1,400. Okay. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
$1,400 is actually kind of a high-end apartment for a 2-bedroom. You could probably find something cheaper in a really kind of lower economy area.
Yeah.
Even in our region.
Yeah.
So I think $1,400, that's reasonable. So you've got one roommate, not 2 roommates or 3 roommates, just one other roommate. You're sharing the rent. So you're paying $700 a month in rent, $75 a month in utilities, $50 a month for your cell phone, $25 a month for your streaming services, because you didn't want to pay for, you're paying for the commercial free versions of your streaming services, $250 for car and transportation. So my estimation is you went out and bought an $8,000 car. And because your credit sucks, it is a 15% interest rate.
Ew.
Yeah. So again, I'm estimating high on some of these things.
It's bad.
Okay. So, but you've got a car, an $8,000 car. That's a nice car.
Yeah.
It's used, but it's still a nice car.
Yeah. It's going to get you places.
And it's going to have good gas mileage. It's going to not need a lot of repairs. So you're generally good at that rate. So $250 a month for car and transportation. $225 a month for groceries. It's about $50 a week, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah.
Clothing, $50 a month. And then for this one, I've got 5% sent to savings. Normally you'd do 10, but you're in college, so you're only doing 5.
Okay.
Okay. At the end of that, you are short $85 a month. Cut back on some streaming services. Maybe get a cheaper car, you're good. And that's while you're in college. You can survive on $9 an hour at 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And pay for your streaming services, Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, all these different things so that you get these streaming without commercials. And I mean, that would be like, I think 3 services right there. That would give you ESPN, Disney, and Hulu in their bundle package for no commercials. Okay. I mean, you're kind of living it up here. You only have one roommate. So realistically, that's not that bad. And that's an $8,000 car
Yeah.
at a job that you had to look for something making very little money. Okay, now we're going to bump that up. I know we're running out of time. You're giving me the look. Okay. I just want to run through a couple of these.
All right.
So in college, bumping it up to $11 an hour. So more reasonable.
High roller.
I know.
Jeez Louise.
$2 more an hour. This is the more reasonable wage that you're going to be making
Okay.
while you're in college. Okay. 40 hours a week, 20 hours actually doing your college stuff with 20 hours of free time to go and do whatever you want to do in college. Okay. That's outside of sleeping. That's outside of transportation. That's outside of eating. And I mean, with that, I mean, transportation is not going to be an hour a day. So that gives you an extra hour a day.
Right.
So all that, you're making $1,900 an hour or $1,900 a month, $1,600 take home. All the same expenses. You end the month with $81 in savings and $167 left over with an $8,000 car, putting 5% into savings, getting all your streaming services, working 40 hours a week. That's it. If you're working 60 hours a week at $11, you are putting $230 into savings every month. That's 10% of your take home. So you're putting $230 into savings every month, and you have $730 left over at the end of every single month. That's fun money, play money. All your bills are done. $730. It's almost 30% of your take home pay that you just get to do whatever with after all your bills are paid. If you have a roommate, if you don't have a roommate, same thing, 60 hours a week, $11 an hour, you're short $46. But that's putting 230 in. So you drop that down to, say, a 5% savings rate until you get a better job. You're still saving, but you're working up to get that better job. Then you are now positive about $100. There is no way, even at $11 an hour, that you can't afford to live a reasonably nice life. Go to college. Okay? These aren't even college rates. These are, people who don't go to college. These are people who don't have anything.
Okay.
You can live a comfortable life.
Yeah.
Okay? Even if you, on that, split rent one, you're married, you're dinks. You're bringing in, because you're going to split everything in half. So you get double of everything at that point. 2 cars, double the groceries, everything. You're still bringing in $1,400 a month combined after savings, after saving $450 a month together. That's if you're dinks working 2 11, or I guess that would be more than 2, but 4 $11 jobs, working 60 hours a week. And you still have 20 hours a week for fun. Okay? There is absolutely no reason to complain. I even went through and I did single with a college degree, dinks with a college degree, and families with a college degree. Families where only one person works and you're only working 40 hours a week. Okay? It's all doable. The hardest one is when you have, and the house I did for these budgets, so if you're single, 40 hours a week at the average, or at the low end rate, so this is when you're starting out, okay? $17 an hour with a college degree, with a bachelor's degree, working 40 hours a week at that job and 20 hours a week at an $11 job. Okay, so that's just a part-time job. You have, if you're single, left over in that nice apartment, not sharing, 2-bedroom, nice life, good car, you still left over with $650 a month. If you're dinks, so double income, no kids. So, and you go out as soon as you get married and you buy a $650,000 house in today's market, paying 7% interest rate, plus all the stuff that goes on to that, you will be making at the end $1,600 of leftover money and $800 in savings, $800 or $900 in savings every month. With that kind of house, 2 cars as dinks, okay? Both of you working 60 hours a week. That should be the standard.
Yeah.
If you are in a family and you're only working 40 hours a week, this is the one where it's the hardest because you've got that same huge house, $650,000 home. It's a pretty nice home. I looked at the average. That's 4 to 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms.
Yep.
Pretty big house. On that budget, you are short $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
That's the only one when it gets difficult is because you've got this huge house and you've got one person working and no second job because you're spending that second job time with family.
Yeah.
And so that's where it gets difficult. If you are a family, the minimum you need to be making on this budget, so to afford a $650 home, to have 2 cars, to have basically this very nice lifestyle, not rich, not mini mansions or anything like that, but a very nice lifestyle, you would need to make $123,000 pre-tax every year. Okay, $123,000 a year.
Okay.
So that's your gross wage. So when you're looking at, that's not after tax. After tax, it would be, what is that? About $100,000 to be able to afford that. Okay, so pre-tax, $128,300. You want to know how much managers make at Walmart?
How much?
$128,000. A manager,
It's almost as if they've done the math.
a manager at Walmart, which does not require a degree, by the way. I looked this up. Managers at Walmart do not require degrees. It requires them to go through training, through education, through Walmart, having worked in management at Walmart for a period of time. $128,000 plus bonuses, plus all the extra stuff that's not included in the 128. A manager at Walmart, which anyone can grow into,
Yeah.
can afford a $650,000 home, 2 cars, and afford everything that we would expect as a nice lifestyle, as a great living arrangement, and only working 40 hours a week.
All right. So it makes me curious how, I don't want to burst everyone's bubble because I feel like that's what we just did is we were like, nope. Yeah, that's nope. Doesn't, that either. Nothing, and like, that's good. But I also want to make sure that we leave them with some positive spin on this. So if you were sitting down, Mr. Heartless, if you were sitting down with this young person that was complaining about their Walmart job, and after taxes, they get their paycheck and they don't have enough to move out, how would you guide them in, kind of some first steps? I have a couple things that I'm going to add to this, but I want to ask you, where would you point them first?
Write it down.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest problems that people have with budgets is, and I'm not talking about write down a budget that you're strictly adhering to, because that actually causes constriction and that runs into problems neurologically. You don't want to, constrict yourself. Just write down how much you're actually making. Write down how many hours you're working.
Yeah.
Write down the actual rent of where you want to go to. Because the problem is we create these abstracts in our brain that this, $600 a week that I'm making in this job isn't enough to afford anything. Well, that's because we're seeing 600, not 2,400.
Yeah.
Which is 4 weeks of work. We think, apartments are so expensive. Well, did you actually look at apartments? Did you write down how much that would be? Did you write down how much a car payment would be? Did you write down how much your streaming services would be? Once you actually write it down, it becomes more concrete in our brain, and we realize, it is doable.
Oftentimes that's where my wife and I have found holes in our budget. Sometimes where we've got overspending somewhere, but we also have holes where we go, we're not overspending, but we have this much excess after everything's paid. And it just takes every once in a while for us, about once a quarter, we go through our bills, obviously monthly, and make sure everything's continued to be maintained. But then once a quarter, we go through and thoroughly, almost audit it, so that we can see, we're like, oh, wow, this is maybe a change. This is an improvement. This is where we've got a spending hole. We're losing money over here,
Yeah. And that's the big thing is when you write it down, it becomes concrete and becomes much more doable. And you realize, wait, this can happen. I can do this. And the other thing I say, don't think that 40 hours is enough. 60 hours is a more reasonable work week for the average person. Now, for any of you who think that, I'm the man in charge, the rich guy who doesn't work enough, I work 80 hours a week and I do have a second job. And so it's not because I don't make enough off of my first job. I own my own company. I need to fill all my time. I have a problem not filling my time. And so I fill that time with a part-time job and I love it.
Well, and oftentimes if I don't fill my schedule with things of value, then I'm going to burn up more than necessary. Like I like playing video games. And if I don't have anywhere to be, I can be there all day. Like it will be, the whole day is gone. I might have to plug the controller in because it's run out of battery. That's how I could burn that clock. Well, I mean, so part of that's a discipline to really say like, look, I need to be aware of this. There's some things that when you say write it down and like, you want to make sure you're not writing down everything.
You write down everything. You just don't be strictly adherent to it.
It's writing it down to be visible, like to
Yes.
make a visual cue of what you're dealing with. And so the same thing goes with time management. And the reason why, like we talked about losing time and why it's costing you. So we've reverted now to time is money, because it truly is. And in both ends of the means, it's a cost or it's an income. And so, it's something that needs to be considered constantly. Take the time to do this. There's things called a time audit. You can do a Google search, find a self-time audit, and it literally gives you just a piece of paper, big white piece of paper like this, and it has charts, and you basically, like a food diary, you write down what you did that day. From the time you woke up to how long you took in the bathroom to, the end of your day and how long your lunch break was, whatever it is.
Hence why I know it takes me exactly 20 minutes to get ready every morning.
And so doing that every once in a while, just like I said, my wife and I do this on our budgeting every quarter, gives you a good glimpse of the holes that you're losing in what reason, And even if you feel like you're doing okay, where you have this luxury, where you can use some of that time, consider doing this just for the sake of going, how could I be more effective with the time that will allow me other benefits elsewhere? So, for example, if you find that you have an extra couple hours a day that you can use somewhere, and instead of going and playing video games, you go on to an education program. Heck, you could go to YouTube and look up education stuff.
Yeah.
And teach yourself how to do an entirely new world. Physics. Get the next man on the moon. I don't care what it is. It's there. And get on there, learn something valuable that will apply and improve your life. And you're going to see a really drastic change in how you feel about, instead of being defeated, now you've really taken charge of your schedule, your time management, your sleep, your eating habits, your financial situation, and you have complete visibility. Like you said, you write it down and you now have almost a tangible, you can touch this and know I have better control because I can see everything. Because oftentimes that's where we lose it is, my daughter she's learning to tell time. She's like, it's 2:14. Okay. She's like 14. So it's 2:00 and then 14. And so like watching her try to do this math, and it's absolutely adorable because I'm like, it's not that complicated. Come on, figure this out, child. You're 7. You should know. No, just my 15-year-old has no concept of time either. So, but it's this idea of like once you get that time, once you realize what time and how valuable it is, you can appreciate the value even more when you see it.
Yeah. And stop letting time pass you by.
Yeah.
Use the time. So I am one of those wonderful people that doesn't require 8 hours of sleep a night. I never have. If I get 8 hours of sleep, I'm actually more groggy than if I only get 5 hours of sleep. So some people are lucky that way. When I was younger, I could get away with 3 hours of sleep a night. And cognitive function, all perfectly normal, capable of doing complex math and all the complex stuff that would be expected of you. And so I'm just fortunately one of those people that get 5 hours of sleep, and that's all my body needs. Well, that gives me 3 hours extra a day to fill in. And so that's why I work 80 hours a week and not 60 hours a week, is because I've got those 3 extra hours and I've still got plenty of time.
Yeah.
And so fill your time. Don't complain about not making enough money when you're sitting around not doing anything. There are so many possibilities, so many growth opportunities, so many ways to become better than you are today by utilizing that time and getting the best out of it and not just wasting it. Now, I do play video games, but not wasting it playing video games all day, every day. Yeah, it's fun every now and then, but don't make it your life. Although I guess esports is a thing, but I mean, if you're in that range, maybe make it your life, and there are other things. Maybe do accounting for fun on the side. I don't know, but that's the idea. Use the time that you have in the best way possible, because you're going to find so much more success out of it. So much more.
So I think one of the things that probably is a good waste of time
Oh, here we go.
is voting. And I know you weren't even ready for that one.
I
were you?
was not.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, first off, you should vote. Okay?
Yeah. I don't think it's a waste of time.
But I'm not talking about that.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about voting for names. Wait a sec. It applies. It's universally.
we're
Okay. We're not there yet. In Minnesota, they've been doing this for a number of years now. Actually, I don't even know if it tells me like the beginning. In 2020. No. Yeah, in 2020 they started this. And they were naming the names of all of their snowplows. They have 800 snowplows, so they've got some work ahead of them. But each year they pick a few, a dozen or so, that get to be named, and then all of the public gets to vote on it. Well, the first year this came out, they had, I think it was like 100. Now I'm going to look. Let's see here. 24,000 submissions and 122,000 votes.
Wow.
I mean, that's like...
That's significant.
That's a lot of submissions. And then, now, granted, it's dropped a little bit. They're down to about 8,000 votes.
Oh, okay.
Or, sorry, submissions in the last contest. I'm pretty sure they're pretty close to the same amount of votes. You don't have to be a citizen of Minnesota. So if you want to chime in here and be like, I want this plow to be named, then you can. You can vote all over the country. And some other states have actually taken on some of these same kind of ideas about naming snowplows. So the names that I used at the very beginning, Beyond Sleigh, was a winner about 2 years ago. Was one that was done. Taylor Drift is in consideration this year, and Clark W. Bliswald is another one. But I was quite entertained by this. This is an ongoing thing, and it's being adopted by a lot of different. Nebraska started doing this. New Mexico has started to do this.
They have snowplows.
I thought the same thing. I was like,
I guess they've got some mountain areas.
there's
in the southern
couple
part
cities
of
that I
the
could
Rockies
say,
there,
little towns. But so there's Plowy McPlowface and Darth Blader. Those were winners over the last few
Okay,
years.
Darth Blader. I can see that
All
one.
right, Blizzard of Oz. You have Scoop Dog and
All right.
Han Snowlo.
Okay.
then the top names were F. So this is a Minnesota connection to it. F. Salt Fitzgerald. It's a nod to F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Also, the truck formerly known as Plow, recognized for the musician Prince.
That was my favorite. I like that one.
So honestly, there's a lot of states. There's Alaska and California are considering these and have started to do their own contests for this. Ohio, Massachusetts, and like I said, New Mexico. Some of the names in New Mexico, they had 1,500 submissions this last year, 23,000 votes, and 12 names for 400 of their plows. Okay. Winners included Fleetwood Mac, Mr. Plow-It-All, and Billy the Skid. Yeah. I mean, these are pretty creative. I like these.
I'm going to throw one out here, okay?
Okay.
A plow with no name. You can just imagine the plow driver. I plowed through the streets in a plow with no name.
So one of the things that, and for you, for knowledge for you, is you can still go on for the Minnesota one. It's active right now.
I might do that.
It won't
Okay.
be active when this broadcast, but the vote is happening. You can.
All right.
You can go in. I don't know if it's a submission that you could submit, but maybe I would definitely do it. Or at least consideration for.
But maybe for next year. For next year.
I want to get this happening here. Like, I don't know why we don't have names. And what happens is, like, they don't just vote for a name. Like, this is the forever name of these plows. And so it's painted in character on the side of each plow.
Nice.
Like, well, I don't know if it's painted in character. Like this one up here is Plowy McPlowface is the pictured one. And it's just printed on the side of the dump, on the back of the, whatever you call that, the dump, the big truck bed. But anyway, like, I think it's just really super cool how, like, they've gotten creative with these. You know, you used to name you name your ship back in the day, and my wife, she has a black SUV. She calls it Betty, like Black Betty.
Oh yeah. My car's name is Belle.
Yeah. My car is silver, and I think my wife, what's the name of my car? Now I can't remember. Sophia.
Oh.
From the Golden Girls, the really
there you go. Yeah.
one,
I know Sophia. Yeah. So my daughter named my wife's car Felicia. Our other SUV, which is red, was called Big Red.
Big Red.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you name vehicles. This is great.
Yeah.
All right. So our listener out there, you have to go on and submit a plow with no name for anything that is going. We'll see how popular we are if we can get this going.
Lincoln, Nebraska, they have one that won this last time. Let's see here, held their first one, and the one that took the most was Cleopatra.
All right.
Cleopatra.
Nice.
It's some of these are tricky to like. I read it and I'm like, this is playing tricks with my mind. And then the Plowy McPlowface one actually was it basically there was a British polar research vessel, and this is what really motivated them to start naming their plows up in Minnesota. In 2016, there was a vote that they did, an online voting sort of situation, and somebody voted for Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah.
And they declined that one. They rejected that after it won in the vote. But so they decided to name it Sir David Attenborough, they named the ship after Sir David Attenborough. And so he's just a naturalist.
Yeah. He's the British guy that talks over all of the nature videos. So when you're watching the old nature videos and you hear him talking,
it's that
golf. Is Sir David Attenborough.
I am Sir David Attenborough, and I bid you farewell. Just anyway, whatever. I hope you liked watching these monkeys eat and throw poop at each other.
Exactly what it would be.
All right, join us next week as we...
No.
We have reached the end of our show. But of course, before we go, I need to mention that life is just too short. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't condemn yourself if you're dealing with time and budget issues. Just take a minute, spend some time, and take a look when you write it down. Keep laughing, keep learning, and remember, idiots have way more fun.